You know, stories are important. However, sometimes you can use the wrong story, not in the right way. And on today's episode, my friend, his name is Nathan Hirsch, and he's going to talk to you about how you can use, or should I say, what stories to use when you're closing the deal. Some good stuff, man. Great ideas. And he has some good stories. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have a great guest. His name is Nathan Hirsch. And Nathan is a co-founder of an organization called Outsource School. And Nathan, he's been very successful in the online world, sold a business and raised many different, helped many different organizations to be successful with his company and his services. And today he's going to talk about not just his organization and one of the cool things that he has going on right now, but he's going to talk to us about stories. He's going to share one of his stories and about how stories can help us close deals. Plus, when he talks about going on a vacation and what happened to his employee when he left, man, that story got me thinking. Anyways, let's listen to Nathan and some of the great things that he's doing. Welcome to the show, Nathan.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course, man. Looking forward to chatting with you. Looking forward to getting some insights from you. And I bragged about you a little bit there at the beginning of the episode, but if you don't mind, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do, man? I know we see outsource school right there in the backyard background, but be willing to tell us a little bit more about what you do, man.
Yeah, I'm a longtime entrepreneur. I started an Amazon business when I was in college. I scaled that Amazon business using virtual assistants because college kids were pretty unreliable, and sold over $25 million on Amazon. Liked VAs and freelancers so much, I started a marketplace for them called FreeUp to compete with the Upworks and the Fivers of the world. And within 4 years, we scaled that business to 8 figures and we were acquired. And one of the coolest parts about that business is we had no office, no U.S. employees. It was me, my business partner, and 35 full-time virtual assistants in the Philippines. So we've learned a ton about not only building the operations of a business, but also marketing and scaling businesses with virtual assistants. And so we set out on a mission this year to teach other entrepreneurs how to do the same thing and to give them access to our hiring process, our SOPs, our community, our coaching. So we've created Outsource School, and if people are interested in that, they can check it out.
That is cool. And yeah, as a big believer in being able to work smarter, not harder, I'm a big recommender of this, and you'll be able to learn a little bit more about this at the end, guys. But we highly recommend you check out Outsource School and some of the cool things Nathan and his team's doing. Makes your life so much easier. But today we're going to be talking about stories, and that was a perfect example. See, this is why you're good at this stuff, man. You just use a story there to talk and to encourage. Now we're going to have a couple people here listening to their podcast, going to search right now for Outsource School. But we want to use stories to help us to be able to close and how we can improve on our close rate by using that. So I want to talk about it, but let's break this down first when it comes towards utilizing stories. Why are stories so effective in the first place when it comes towards your close?
Yeah, I think in my case, it makes them relatable. I try to sell products and services that I believe in because I've usually run into issues in the past that have caused me to create this product or service. So by being able to tell the stories, I'm able to relate it to me, which makes it more relatable to them. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they get in the habit of, oh, I'm so good, I make so much money, all these positive things. And that ends up not being as relatable as people want it to be. And if you take even a step back to my last marketplace or my last business, FreeUp, where I would tell people, hey, I tried the other platforms out there. I posted a job. I got 100 applicants. I interviewed them one by one. It took forever. I wanted something faster. And obviously that's a short version of the story, but people can relate to that. People are saying, man, I've done that before. I've had that experience before. This person has been there. He's been in my shoes, and now he's created a solution.
You know, one of the things that I read, working on a presentation that I'm doing, and I read something in my research that most people, the folks over at Gong, they pointed out that so many times sales reps, what they typically do, they focus, they stay on point A a little and jump to point B the most, and point A is the pain and point B is the outcome. And too often it's the studies show that if sales reps don't spend time on A, then B doesn't even make sense at all. And that's kind of like what you're saying. Like even what you just shared there, it's kind of like I'm wallowing in that and be like, yeah, I know that feeling because I was thinking about my Upworks, one of my first Upworks job, and I'm trying to tally in my head how many hours that I spent doing that as well. Because the point is you like you're saying, you're putting yourself in that shoe. And you still didn't say anything particularly about the solution yet, but you're getting them to validate and to agree. Am I off on that with the stories?
No, 100%. I mean, the more specific, the better. I mean, a story that I like to tell is I I hired one person and I taught him how to do my entire business. And I went on vacation to Myrtle Beach. And on
Nice.
my first day of vacation, he quit on me. So six months of training down the drain. So I tell that to my community and I tell them, okay, that's why you need to diversify. That's why you need to learn how to hire VAs for different things so that doesn't happen to you. And hopefully going forward, and I've seen this, people, when they think in their head, oh, I want to get that unicorn VA that does everything, they think back to Nathan's story, and I want to avoid that.
Yeah. And again, going back to that again, in that story, it's so much pain. It's so much. I went along with you. I was thinking about Myrtle Beach. I was imagining what that's like. 6 months of training, and then all of a sudden he leaves. And you didn't go way too much on B. You didn't go way too much on here's a big solution, because the solution doesn't really matter, really, when it's all said and done. If you don't have somebody that first says, yes, that's me. Yes, I have that problem. And yes, I want to fix it now. And I think that's where it comes down to. Because if you so want to fix it, it just so happened that it's through the services that we offer here at Outsource School. You know what I mean? So, but let's. What are some of the things that people get wrong when it comes towards framing or creating stories that they can use in helping them to close?
So I always say that you should be building up your toolbox of stories. I think when I first started, I tried to actually sit down and like think of stories, but they actually came to me a little over time. I would go on a podcast, I would talk to a client, and this story would pop up, and then I felt like I would add it to my toolbox. And not only that, but every time I would tell the story, I would try to make it a little bit better. I kind of gave you the super summarized short version of my stories, but the more you tell the story on podcast clients, whatever it is, you make it better. And you also could try. You want to be listening to people and seeing their reactions on Zoom or hearing them over the phone and adjusting your story to what makes sense. Because if I expanded that Myrtle Beach story, actually on that exact same day that that person quit, my supplier dropped me. And then on the exact same day that happened, I also had a fake tax return filed in my name so I had a really bad day on vacation. And so on some podcasts, I'll tell that story, but on other times, if I'm talking just about the hiring, some of those other details just kind of distract from my overall main point. So I think figuring out what is your toolbox of stories, and then how do I take each story and customize it to the actual situation and have it to use going forward.
Because sometimes people say, by the way, man, I'm glad you still have your sanity.
I'm doing well.
After all of that. As you take a swig of coffee, it's like, maybe it's water. So he's like, I got to keep going, man. But, you bring up so many good points in that. The first one that I thought was interesting was how you mentioned the toolbox of stories. Sometimes people listen who may be new or new entrepreneurs, they don't have stories yet. What I like to do is borrow stories and give credit back to it. So if I was starting off brand new today and I heard you on a podcast say that, I would then say one of the guys, I heard the story about this dude, or I heard this from, someone from one of my friends. You're my friend because obviously we connect here, and obviously if you're on Facebook you got to be real friends now, so
Right.
you know about my kids, so fair enough. But no, but it's that way you start using something, or you can utilize things that you hear in the industry. And when I started off as a B2B sales rep and I didn't have stuff, I just used what other salespeople were saying, or I read company case studies and I used those stories until I did have validation from my own, and it took it to another level. But you can definitely put it into different areas. And one of the things I tell people too, Nathan, and maybe you could speak to this for a little bit, is I use stories with objections often. And especially when you're coming out to the close, say this is not something that I think we're going to be able to do right now. And then instead of me trying to, it's because of this feature benefits, it's more about, I know where you're coming from, and, obviously try to pry, but then go into a story. Do you do that? Do you try to use that? Is that a strategy that's effective?
No, I 100% agree. And I love what you said about kind of avoiding the feature benefit. And I'm kind of in a weird spot because for 4 years, like I worked on free up, right? Like
Yeah.
by year 4, we had our pitches, our stories, like every single fine detail down. And here I am starting a new venture, same space, but different. And the value proposition is different, the product, the service, and all of that. And at the beginning of starting a new business, you almost fall into the same category because you're like, here's what I offer, here are my different products, here are my benefits, and you have to remember what worked in the past. So, and there's a certain amount of just trial and error and tweaking and see what works. Like that's kind of in the stage that we're in. I mean, we started Outsource School 5-6 months ago. We have 300 members or whatever, but we haven't defined our message, our story. Like all that is subject to change. And so I've noticed that when I get into that habit of being like, oh, here are the different things we have, those conversations go way worse than focusing on the story, the outcome, and all the stuff that goes with it.
No one's perfect, and I have my fair share of blunders. This is why I have over 300 episodes, because a lot of them are just blunders, mess up that I did, and you learn from them. So congratulations, guys. You don't have to be a test dummy. But were there any situations where you attempted or tried to tell a story, but it just didn't have a great efficacy, where it didn't give the right punch? You messed up on it, or it didn't work out, and then you went back and regrouped, and it became better.
Yeah,
I don't put you on the spot here, guys. We didn't prep for this part.
It's good. It's funny because so the way I used to tell my story is I wanted to find like extra beer money when I was in college. And like, that's how I got into finding it, like becoming an entrepreneur. And I kind of went along the line of like, that was my motive originally. And that for whatever reason, like I thought that was like a funny story and people could relate to it. It just didn't work. And sometimes there's no necessary like rhyme or reason behind it, but I had someone just tell me like, scrap it. And there's some truth to it. Like yeah. I did actually need side money. It wasn't all for beer. I needed to eat and other stuff as well. But I also really wanted to be an entrepreneur, and people can relate to that as well. So I think there's small parts of that. I mean, I've done so many podcasts and had podcasts that went poorly, went well, kind of like you said. And yeah. It's just like constant tweaking on every little part. My biggest thing is I never want to come across as someone who has just like made it, I'm successful, I've never had like a down, because that's just not the truth. And that's just not relatable in any way. So I always make sure that if I'm telling stories, it's not necessarily like success story. Like no one wants to hear that.
No, and I think that's where salespeople sometimes get it wrong. And for me, I can tell you that one of the things that has helped us a lot over the years is because of the fact that I can relate to people, because I know exactly where you're coming from, where you get hung up on for saying something stupid because it wasn't a good message, or it's like if you were to, it gives the fact if you could show some level of frailty, some level that you're human. Again, you go back to the point you said, it makes it that it's relatable, but it also gives the idea that you did something to fix it and you improved on it. And I want to know, what is that point? What did you do that made it such a big difference? And that's why we like those stories from those rag to riches, somebody who was down and out, the comeback stories, or the Rudies of the world. This dude that was average guy that had a goal to play college football, and it was impossible for him to do it, but over the course of this drama, he had these issues, and his brother steals his girlfriend. And then eventually, finally, he played in the very last game. It happened. But you got to have that drama. You got to have those ebbs and flows and those difficulties. As you're telling stories and as you're developing these stories, you're trying to identify drama. What kind of things should I include to make that story great? I know you kind of shared some of yours about how you failed, the guy, the tax issues and so forth. But I don't want it to. Some people are probably saying, I just don't know what to tell them, or what is too much or what is too little to share. Any thoughts on that part?
Yeah, so I also like to find other people's stories. It could be friends, it could be family, but the way that you proposed it is great, where you're giving other people credit, but there's another way to approach as well, where, for example, I had someone in my community ask me about giving someone a raise. He didn't know if he should do it. They asked for a raise, and I related it to my friend who lives in San Diego. I didn't have to say my friend's name, and he went to his company and he asked for a $5,000 raise to a big company. Not that big of a deal. Well, they turned him down and he went looking for another job. got another job, left, and guess what? It cost that company a lot more than $5,000 to replace him. And so that story had absolutely nothing to do with me, but now I have that person thinking, okay, I need to decide if this whatever raise, and it wasn't $5,000, it was probably $1 an hour, is worth losing that person. And if I had just said, no, don't do that, like give him the raise, he'll quit if you don't, that's not as relatable as someone else's story, which again had nothing to do with me.
Yeah. No. So, and yes, by far, sometimes I think we try to do some cheap finagle tricks, and in the long run, it doesn't work. You got to make sure you reward your people, man. So, and I'm not just saying that because I was a sales rep and I like to get money, but as a business owner, I've seen it though. When we empower our members, when we give them opportunities, obviously people have to, they earn their success, but rising tides needs to raise all boats. And when you give your team the opportunity to thrive and succeed, magic starts to happen, just all around. Big believer in that. Going back to the close, we know that stories are effective here. We talked about the stories of, overcoming problems or objections. Are there types of stories? You mentioned we talked about stories to individuals and stories to different types of, the characters you might be speaking to, whether it's a business owner or he's a sales manager, marketing. You tailor the stories according to that. But are there different types of stories? We have the before and after, but are there any other types of stories that would make sense? Or maybe you don't even have category. Maybe the before and after is a perfect one, but open to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I always like to think of like what are the common objections people would have, and if you can create stories around those objections, that's usually a pretty good start. And most common objections are like fear of money loss, fear of wasted time. You've got like, hey, am I actually capable? Are they confused? Like, can I actually do this? And so if you, for example, let's take like, am I able to? Well, yeah. I can tell a story of, hey, I didn't get my MBA. I've never had a real job before. Like hey, I'm nothing like special out there. And that's a terrible example, but you can take the objections and turn those into stories. And really what you should be figuring out is what is the biggest objection. You might have all these people who are on the fence buying from you, and there's just that one objection. You're one objection away from getting those sales. And if you can tie that into a good story, instead of just saying, oh, don't worry, you can do it, or hey, the risk is low, or whatever it is, that's a much better way.
Are there any books, any individuals out there who are great storytellers that you look towards, or maybe they don't have a book or a website, but they're just like somebody that that they can connect with on LinkedIn to learn how to tell better stories, someone that you just love or are fascinated by?
Yeah, Phil Knight, the Nike book.
Yeah, bro.
I'm not thinking of the name.
Shoe Dog, right? Shoe Dog.
Shoe Dog. Thank you.
I think that's what it is. Shoe Dog. We're gonna check. We'll fact check and put it in the show notes.
But that's great. I mean, if you want to know how to tell stories, that's it. You feel like you're there throughout the entire book and all that. So that's on the top of my head because I read it a few weeks ago. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stories there. There's plenty of books out there on how to tell stories. I'm also reading Jim Edwards' book on copywriting secrets, which you can take the exact same thing and apply it to voice calls and all of that. But it's all about the story.
Yeah, I mean, copywriting, I mean, you cannot not use story if you're trying to be a great copywriter. You have to have some kind of story, and even if it's not verbatim, as you read through the whole page of the copy, you'll see that it's interwoven through that is a story. It's a message. It's usually that start to finish, right? Of the transformational message that you're going to get from it. And Russell ClickFunnels Brunson's great. Good individual with storytelling as well, and some of the copywriting things with that nature as well. And I mean, there are many different books like you're saying out there. Don Miller has a book, The Story Brand. I always tout that one.
Great book.
Love it, man, because it just makes it again where you're there in your mind. Why do you feel oftentimes those salespeople, entrepreneurs neglect from telling stories? Is it because they don't think they need to, they don't have the stories, or they just skip it, don't understand altogether? What is that reason?
I think there's some myths just in the sales space because I know I've never had a real job after college, but I was a sales intern at a
Whatever, bro.
fire
Listen to
store.
all this success you have. Of course, those are real jobs.
And like they weren't teaching me to tell stories. They were teaching me
Yeah.
to, hey, like take what the technician told you in the back, come to the front, sell it to the person, tell them what they need, close the sale. And I feel like a lot of companies do training that way. And people, when they think of a used car salesman or whatever they want to relate selling to, they're not thinking of stories. And so I think it's sometimes ingrained in people's mind, and it takes a little bit of tweaking of what their mentality is.
Okay. So again, I'm always just like off the cuff here, and I like to do stuff that I feel would best benefit, and I can decent reader of people, and I read you and I see that you're great at telling stories. So I'm going to put you on a spot again. So everyone listening, this is totally just Nathan and I here just kicking it back as bros, but we're going to do a role play scenario, right? The most common objections that we hear is salespeople hear is price, especially right now during when we're recording this episode. This is during still during a pandemic. It's September 21st, I believe, 2020. We're price objection, and let's say that even if they're a B2B or B2C seller, let's say we're your product right now, Nathan. I give you that. What an objection! I come up with the objection that Nathan is just too expensive right now. Let's see if you can tell us a story that would be able to help us overcome that objection and move further. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, let's do it. So,
All right. So
so outsource school, it's $997 a year, which I hear a lot, even though I don't think that's too expensive. People say, hey, it's not the right time, COVID, whatever it is, $997. And what I like to tell them is, listen, when I started off being an entrepreneur,
yeah.
I focused on everything besides hiring. I was learning how to sell on Amazon. I was learning marketing tactics. I was learning how to read financial statements, all the other stuff. And I spent tons and tons of money learning from those people, whether it was marketers, coaches, courses, whatever it was. And what it came down to is, even though I had all this skill, my business wasn't growing. It was going in circles. And the reason for that is because I couldn't hire. And not only could I not hire, but I was wasting money on bad hires. It was costing me way more than $1,000 every single time I made a bad hire. And it wasn't until I sat down and took the time to learn a hiring process, interviewing, onboarding, training, and managing, which, by the way, took me years, then my businesses were able to scale. Then my businesses were able to grow. Then I was able to take other tactics, other strategies, and plug them into my business. But I always wish that there was a way to avoid that opportunity cost, because every single month that went by, I was wasting money on bad hires, or I was doing more work myself, and my business would have accelerated so much faster. So yeah, it's a $997 purchase today, but you're able to skip ahead. You're able to avoid those $1,000 bad hires there. And 6 months from now, you're going to be so much happier that you were able to hire better, hire faster, than waking up in 6 months and saying, hey, now it's time to spend that $997. I don't know if that was any good, but
there you go. That's good, man. That's good, because now you're helping us reframe probably what you talked about before, about the fact that the value is in this. The value that you're getting is way beyond $1,000. It's the opportunity. You're taking all of my mistakes that I have made and being able to bottle this all together. We're giving you SOPs that probably take thousands of dollars to create in the first place, and also the bad hires or the training. We're going to give you all of that to shortcut that process. And then I'm sure there's probably some kind of payment plan or something where, if maybe there's not, but either way, there
is.
Yeah, there you go. See, so it's like, don't even worry about it. Why don't you go ahead and start and, break it up if that's going to make it easier for you. But then the result is there, because clearly I had some kind of pain to the point that I got to this part of the conversation all the way to the close. There must be something there that I have. And it's just helping me to mitigate that risk to step over the line. So story helped with that, so that's good. See, guys, I told you this is Nathan Hershey. If you want to get connected with him, I told you he brings the good stuff, man. Nathan, well, let's talk a little bit more about the program, actually, if you don't mind. I know you probably talk about it way too much, all the podcasts you go on, but we want to hear a little bit more about Outsource School. You mind telling us what that is a little bit for a second?
Yeah, so our goal is to help you hire A players, not only hire A players, but be able to do it quickly Then once you have the A players, be able to take our systems, our processes that we've already built for operations and marketing and growing your business and plug them into your business with community and support and live coaching calls to help you do it. And that's really what Outsource School is about. We built an 8-figure business before, run completely by virtual assistants. You get to be on the inside while we do it again, while we teach you every little thing that we do in order to grow businesses with the virtual assistants. And you can join for $9.97 a year right on the Outsource School site. You can also split it up into 4 monthly payments, no interest. And we have coupon code TSE will actually save you 10% off. You can still use the payment plan if you want.
Hey, look at that. So now instead of this, you get $100 off the thing. So it's now it drops down to like $800, right? And and then you get the opportunity to take advantage of this awesome offer. Now, the other part to this too is some people listen to this and they're like saying, I don't have a business per se. I'm a salesperson. They're successful. Can a successful salesperson still adopt these principles, hire a VA that can help them produce or take a lot of the legwork away from them?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that hiring is the number one skill you have to learn in business. The people that learn how to hire early, they're the ones that can have success later on because you can apply it to every single role, every single business you have going forward. I can't tell you how many salespeople I know that have a virtual assistant. They have someone doing research, booking calls. If you think of the sales process as 100%, get a virtual assistant doing that first 10 or 20%.
Yep.
It's super cheap, super affordable. You're going to be able to focus on the bigger picture stuff in whatever you're doing. And again, it's just a skill that you can multiply times over in everything you do going forward.
And I want to just give one big plug for you guys, for folks who are listening out there to this too. You might be thinking about it. And again, it could be, you might think it's, because that's one of the common questions I get when people ask me about, VAs. How do you go about finding them? I'm not the expert on that. That's why I rely on people like Nathan who could probably, give you those better insights. But the thing that I've seen though, utilizing VAs, is my sales team, the last thing I want them to do is spend hours doing research on, just finding the best email or phone number. We have some LDRs, lead development reps, and their job is to do the research, prep the list, and so forth. And then my team does the things that they're qualified to do, my sellers, is to have those meaningful conversations and dialogues. But I cannot tell you how much time that saved us, and obviously translating into dollars. So big believer in it. So sales rep, listen to the stuff Nathan is talking about here. Nathan, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, man. I super appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Boom. There you go. And I realized I was calling you my other friends. I do have a friend, another buddy's Nathan Hershey, like the Hershey, out of BYU. So forgive me about that, but we'll make sure we'll fix it. So Nathan.
All good. Anything I can do to help you?
Oh, man. If you know anybody that's having those VAs that need sales training, send them our way.
So we have a partnership program where,
Yep.
we can do content swaps too, but we also have it where our partners will actually provide SOPs to our SOP library. So if you have SOPs on sales, marketing, whatever it is, that are for virtual assistants, we give you full credit. You can put your company information, your contact information. It's a great way to get in front of our members. We have 300 plus members and growing. And so if you have any of those, send those over to me and we'll add them to our library. It'll be cool.
So I'll talk to my COO about that. So SOP.
And email partners@outsourceschool.com and we'll get you set up as a partner as well and do some other stuff together. It could be blog swaps or whatever.
Yes. Outsourceschool.com. All right, my brother. Well, thank you, man, for taking the time to come on the show again. I appreciate your insight, man.
Sounds good. Take it easy.
See you later, Nathan. That was Nathan Hirsch. And if you want to learn about Nathan and some of the cool things that he's doing and his organization, I recommend, if you're watching this on YouTube, on TSE TV, just scroll down, click on the link, and get a chance to get connected with Nathan. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever, just click on the cover art and swipe up. You'll get a chance to see some of the notes and the information that we took down so you can have a good summary and some of the links to get back to Nathan. I highly recommend you check out his organization. Check out some of the cool things they're doing. We utilize virtual assistants, and it's helped us to grow our organization tremendously. And I highly recommend some of the great things that Nathan have. We have some links back to his products and to his services and some of the tools that they're utilizing. Just check it out. That's all you need to do. Check it out. Once you test it and you like it, then go from there. It's the same idea I tell you about our friends over at Pipedrive. I mean, Pipedrive, I don't know if I want them to listen to this podcast, because sometimes I'm thinking that they don't realize what kind of deal they're giving us. It's like a steal. They're giving us, typically they do a 14-day trial. So they said for TSE audience, they're doubling that. So 30-day trial of Pipedrive, which is great. But then they came back and said, we're going to give you guys even more. And I was like, what else are you going to give? They said, we're going to give you guys 25% off the first 3 months just because you're TSE listeners. I was like, oh yeah, sign me up. So if you want to check out Pipedrive, go ahead and take advantage of the promo code. It's Pipedrive TSE. Don't go tell anybody else about this. This is just for TSE people. Shh. Pipedrive TSE. Use that and take advantage of this great offer. Check out Nathan, learn about some of the great things that he's doing. As always, I want you to succeed. I want you to find more of those ideal customers. I want you to know what to say when you reach out to them. And I want you to close more deals. But most importantly, I want you to challenge yourself each and every single day to go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you enjoyed the content, I ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up in the bottom right-hand corner. Also, to make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. This way, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest sales strategies, latest tools, and things that are going to help you to not only find more prospects, but to close more deals. Thanks so much.